The Milwaukee Bucks have been the best team in the league this season, and with Giannis being in MVP conversations for the 5th year in a row, a lot of people have the perception that this Bucks team hasn't really changed that much since they won the championship. And on paper, those people are kind of right. Since 2021, the Bucks haven't made any major moves. They've just been gradually upgrading the roster around Giannis from year to year. But for the past 2 to 3 seasons, they've been championship ready, and they have everything they need. They have the superstar, they have their number 2 guy, they have their big body presence down low who can also shoot, and they have one of the best defensive point guards in the league who's also very productive offensively. I would say Milwaukee is not the same team that they were from a game plan perspective 2 years ago. In their championship season, the Bucks had the 6th best offensive rating at 117.2 and the 10th best defensive rating at 111.4. Remember, in that previous offseason, they traded Bledsoe, George Hill, and 3 firsts for Jrue Holiday. That move made them even better defensively, and it also added another 16 to 20 point per game scorer onto this Bucks team. In his first season there, Holiday averaged 18 and 6 and did what he did best, providing great defense and playmaking for this team. He also contributed to the Bucks having one of the best defensive ratings in that playoffs at 107.6. Now, Jrue Holiday is great. I love watching him play, and a lot of people give the Bucks criticism because they gave up 3 first-round picks for him. I personally think it was worth it. I think it was a win-now move, etc., etc. But where my problem lies with Jrue Holiday is his lack of consistency in huge moments, especially in the playoffs. Throughout the championship run, Jrue Holiday shot 40% from the field and 30% from 3. Against Miami, he averaged nearly 50% from the field, which isn't a surprise because Miami completely fell off the radar in 2021. They were nowhere near the same team they were the year previous. But when the Bucks were facing an actual contender in the Nets, Holiday shot 36% from the field for the series. Against Atlanta, which is also another bad defensive unit, Holiday's numbers shot back up to 46%. And then in the finals against the Suns, it shot right back down to 36%. And if you look at some of these shooting numbers, 4 of 14, 7 of 21, 4 of 19. Holiday legitimately only had 2 good games shooting the ball in that entire final series. But I will give him credit because he did make up for it with his incredible defense on Devin Booker down the stretch and how he locked down Chris Paul towards the end of the series. And in 2022, it was more or less the same story. In that Celtics series, Holiday averaged 21 points per game, but he was painfully inconsistent, not only in his scoring output but his efficiency. In game 1, he put up 25, right? It was a huge win, Giannis had a great game, and the Bucks ended up taking home court. In a game 2 blowout loss, he had 19 points on 8 of 20 shooting. Game 3, he stepped it back up with 25 on 11 of 30 shooting. Still bad shooting, but he still made up for it with his output. And then game 4, the Celtics would end up winning, with Holiday shooting an abysmal 5 of 22. And this went on for the entire series. Because of Holiday's lack of offensive output, Giannis was forced to put up 34, 14, and 7 just to even crack this series to 7 games. Not to mention, Giannis became one of the few players to ever put up 3 40-point games in a playoff series. But in this Celtics series, Holiday didn't have a single game where he shot 45% at least. And in that game 7, he was nowhere to be found. And at the start of the 2023 season, Chris Middleton was still going to miss time due to that same injury he suffered in the playoffs. And people thought that the Bucks were going to struggle, but to much people's surprise, we ended up starting the season 10-0, pretty much taking over the Eastern Conference for like the first 2 months of the season. And during this beginning stretch of the regular season, Jrue Holiday was playing amazing offensively. And I think the problem was, in previous seasons, he was just kind of thrown into that second option role, especially in last year's playoffs. And this year, with a full year of experience with that second option role, whenever Milwaukee needs him to step up, he can. In 2023, Holiday is averaging 19 and 7 on 48, 38, 86 splits, and he's actually become one of the Bucks' best 3-point shooters. I've also noticed that the Bucks are trying to put the ball in Holiday's hands more often, trying to put less pressure on Giannis. And in a playoff series against one of these really good teams in the East like Philly or Cleveland, it's really going to be beneficial for the Bucks to get production from Jrue Holiday, because if teams are leaving Jrue Holiday open, the Bucks will actually be in trouble. Now for Chris Middleton's case, he ended up returning against the Lakers in early December and started off slow, but as the season went on, he started to pick it up more and more and started contributing more to the Bucks offense. And as mentioned before, ever since Jrue took the mantle of the second option, it's made Middleton's life a hell of a lot easier because he doesn't have to pick up any real slack. The only concern with Middleton though is his inconsistency as well. Some games he'll look like the best player on this team, and then other games he'll just completely disappear. Sometimes you just don't know which version of Chris Middleton you're going to get. But the thing that makes Milwaukee so scary to me is their defense. In my opinion, they have the best defense in the league, as they have the third best defensive rating at 111, and they have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Brook Lopez. When we look at how Lopez has been anchoring this Bucks defense, he ranks second in blocks per game behind Jaren Jackson Jr. And when Lopez is on the court, their block rate goes up by 3.8% and their defensive rating goes up by plus 3.2. Teams end up shooting worse when Lopez is on the floor, and when Lopez is on the floor, the Bucks end up rebounding more just because of how big of a threat he is inside due to his size and strength. And what makes Lopez's great defensive season so impressive to me is the fact that he's way past his physical prime. I think the Bucks version of Brook Lopez is the best version of him, but in terms of his physicality, just the stage he's in at his career right now, you wouldn't expect somebody of Brook Lopez's age to be out here having the best defensive season of their career and being a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I mean, the Bucks only allow 48.7 points per game in the paint, which is like 11th in the entire league, and Lopez is such a huge contributor to that. When Lopez is in the paint, opponents shoot 51.6% at the rim, and his block percentage is 67%, and he's contested over 1,000 shots this season, over 17.3 per game. Again, what Lopez is doing right now is unprecedented, and he definitely deserves to be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. And Milwaukee's overall defense has been amazing. At the trade deadline, they ended up getting Jay Crowder, who's another great defensive piece that is already added to this amazing defensive unit. I love the way that they use Giannis as a roamer, similar to how the Lakers use Anthony Davis. And as mentioned before, they're top 3 in defensive rating. They have one of the best defensive bigs in the league. They're one of the best rim protecting teams, and they've gotten better at defending the three-point line. Bucks are actually top 10 in opponents' three-point percentage, which is a huge improvement to where they were in 2021. Because in that Boston series, in the Nets series, in the Suns series, Milwaukee's biggest problem was that they allowed way too many three-pointers and they were too fixated on defending the paint. I remember numerous plays against the Nets where they would do drop coverage against Kevin Durant, out of all people. And the Nets were literally playing Brook Lopez off the floor and forcing Mike Budenholzer to put Giannis at the 5. On average, Milwaukee allows 15 three-pointers a game in that Celtics series. But in that Game 7, the Bucks allowed the Celtics to make 22 threes and giving up 7 threes to Grant Williams. This season, the Bucks have the 9th best defensive three-point percentage, which is a 0.5% decrease from last season. They are going under screens far less, as Jrue Holiday has improved when it comes to fighting over screens. And in a playoff setting, I'm confident that the Bucks' defensive ability is going to translate. And I also wanted to give credit to Mike Budenholzer, as he's improved as a coach since the championship season. The problem with Mike Budenholzer has always just been his lack of willingness to adjust. And it was evident in that Nets series, because even though the obvious answer was to sit Brook Lopez, for a lot of that series he refused to do so. And when he finally did and the Bucks ended up making a huge run, he would end up putting Brook Lopez back in the game. But in the past year and a half, he's been open to experimenting more defensively. He's gotten more creative with his offense, especially with how he incorporated Giannis as a roll man on the pick and roll. And he's also doubled down on the idea of resting his stars in the regular season. And you already know I can't talk about the Bucks without mentioning how amazing Giannis has been this season. And I know people aren't that surprised anymore because we're kind of numb to how Giannis has been playing for the past 5 years. But the fact that he's currently fighting with Jokic and Embiid in the MVP race right now, averaging 31, 12, and 5 on 60% true shooting, is insane. And a lot of people aren't talking about how much Giannis has improved since the championship. I think he's become a better playmaker, a better jump shooter, and a better defender. And if we're talking off the court stuff, he's become a way better leader, which is kind of an underrated reason why the Bucks have been so great this year. And another underrated thing that people don't talk about is how consistent he is. In a playoff setting, Giannis is the Bucks' most consistent offensive weapon. Last year against Boston, as I mentioned before, he had 3 40-point games. In a crucial Game 6, he put up 44 and 20 and was so close to ending up putting the Celtics away at home. He's proven since 2020 that when his team needs him the most, he's going to show up. And another underrated thing about Giannis is that he is so well rested for the playoffs. Every single season, there's a reason why he only plays 30 minutes a game. And for a majority of the games this season, the Bucks have been in way better control of every single game, to the point where Giannis doesn't even need to play for a majority of it. So while the wear and tear is going to be affecting Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid, etc., Giannis is going to be ready to go, especially when he returns from injury. And also another scary fact is the bench has built insane amounts of chemistry when the stars aren't playing. Guys like Javon Carter, Jay Crowder, Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, etc., all of these guys have built so much great chemistry together to where the Bucks aren't going to fall apart when Middleton exits the game or Giannis exits the game. They'll still be competent enough to stay in the game, especially if they're going up against a team like Philly who has so much offensive talent. But yeah, man, the Milwaukee Bucks, they're my favorite to come out of the East. And I think a lot of teams in the East should be fearing this team. But yeah, man, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. If you like videos like this and you want to see more of them, subscribe. More videos should be on the way soon, and I'm out. Peace.